So I have this scene. I've used this in a couple of tutorials now. I've deleted out all of the lights, I've deleted out the cameras, and we're going to set up a camera and we're going to set up some lighting and see if this is of some help for you guys. So I click here on camera and just click on physical, and I'm going to just drag with the left mouse button and drop, and if I press C here, I'm going to go into the camera and let's isolate the camera. I just right click because I didn't want to make another one. I just press W, so I'm selecting things, select this, come out of isolation mode, and I'm just going to drag this around. I'm just going to change this to camera, select this camera. Sometimes it does that, you select the camera, it selects the target as well, and you know, if you're trying to move things now, it's going to be a bit annoying. So let's just see if we can get this. There you go, it's just the camera. Let's pull this back a bit. I'm just going to change over here on the camera. I'm going to change the focal length, it's set at 40. Let's come back. Something like that. You know, 20 might be a bit much. I prefer to keep it a bit higher. Let's try 24. Somewhere like that. And if needed, you know, I can put on clipping planes here. If I click on miscellaneous, I can enable clipping planes, and let's try 1 meter. So I can set the camera on the other side of the wall, you know, and just clip through it. You got to watch, obviously. You can see here, you know, the light's disappearing at my meter. So I could either, you know, reduce the clipping plane or see what I want to do, but take the target, rotate that, camera. I'm just going to bring this forward a bit. You know, you can do that and completely get rid of the light and still see the chair. But I don't think I really want to do that. Although maybe. Let's leave one there. And okay, and let's select the camera again. And I'm just going to press shift and drag. So I'm going to make, you know, a copy of this, put it on the other side of the room. And here I'll click on this viewport, right click on this viewport and just press C. And because that camera is selected, it's instantly going to go in there. I'll press F3. Alright, so I changed this to facets because on default shading, the models are just disappearing. It's a bug. I have Service Pack 2 in Max 2018, so hopefully this has been fixed in Service Pack 3. I'm not sure why it's doing it, but if I change to facets, I'll be able to see the models I have. Obviously, there'll be no smoothing on them, but at least I can see my scene. So I'm just going to click on the physical camera and click Select Camera Target, and then right-click on this viewport and drag. You can also left-click. The reason I right-click is because, you know, if you left-click, you can deselect or select something else. So I'm always right-clicking instead of deselecting. Okay, select camera. And something like this, I think. We're seeing a lot of ceiling, a bit too much ceiling, so select camera target, and I'm just going to drag that down a bit. And then with architectural photography, you're normally making sure all of the verticals are straight. So just select camera. Okay, so then over here in the camera, if you look, sometimes it's hiding in my screen right under here. It's under perspective control, and then click auto vertical tilt correction. Okay, so now if I take this, if I press W, and I click on here, and select camera target, and pull this down a bit. And if I select the camera again, you see how this vertical tilt, this is moved automatically. Let me just select this camera. I'm going to click that again, just in case I start moving the target later on. But right now, the target and the camera are in exactly the same plane, so that's not having an effect. Okay, so I've got 2 cameras. I'm fairly happy with these. I think this one here, I think the target should just swing around a bit. More like that. But I don't have anything outside, so I'm just going to leave it there. And maybe I pull it. I'm just going to see if I pull the camera over. I'm probably going to leave it where it is. But yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, so we're going to go with those two cameras. Next thing to set up here is I'm always going to change this shutter type to seconds. And this is, if I set it like this, that's open for 1 second. So for this, I probably want it about a 30th of a second. Aperture, let's lower this down to 4. The exposure, I want an ISO 750 interior. Let's leave it at that. And we'll say daylight, there'll be daylight outside. Okay, and then remember these settings, because I'm going to set the other one the same. 4, 30, and 750. So now the lighting will affect both cameras in exactly the same way. Okay, so the next thing to do, we've got no lights, we can't do any tests. We need to set up an HDRI and then just do some tests with that. So I'm going to click on the light here. I'm going to change this to V-Ray, click V-Ray light, and just drop that into the scene. Then I'm going to come over here on the Modify tab. I'm going to change it from plane to dome. This multiplier, change it to 1. Texture, click on here. Go to Maps V-Ray, and you want V-Ray HDRI. Okay. I'm just going to find one. Okay, Viz people have some nice free HDRIs for non-commercial work. So we'll use one of these. Okay, we'll use this one. I kind of like this. This is one I've edited. Okay, this is the unedited version. Okay. Now, this is in here, the HDRI. If you press M and bring up your material editor, okay, I'm going to delete out this view and create a new one. So delete view. Right click up here, create new view. Okay. Alright. So let's take this HDRI map, drag it in here, and you want an instance. So the difference is the changes you make here affect this light. Otherwise, any changes you make here aren't going to affect this at all. So click OK. Double click on this. Now, the way this works is the way the guys set up their lights, their HDRIs, is see this line? Like that's 0 degrees. So if I want to rotate the HDRI around, what I have to do is just rotate it here. If I set this to 90, now it's going to come around 90 degrees and the main light source, the sun, is going to be here. If I set 180, the sun's going to be there. So it's just going to keep coming around. So that's 90, 180, 270, 360 will be back at 0. But you can just set it to any of these points you want on this compass. And, I want the light coming in through this window here. So I'll probably want it around, well, I think I'll have it coming in falling like this. So that would be 180. So I want it about 210, something like that, 210, 220. Now overall multiplier 1 and render multiplier 1, I'll leave it like that for now. I'm going to come in here. Now I'm going to change some render settings. First of all, I'm going to reset all my render settings. I can do that simply by changing the render. I'm going to change to Arnold here. And then I'm going to change back to V-Ray. Now all of these render settings here are set back to default. So I use some settings here which aren't in default. So I normally right click and say switch all to expert. And right, then I'm going to go through this. We got the frame buffer where we want to save the image. Right now we don't want to save it. We're just doing tests. Progressive, I normally change that to bucket for tests. I change that to 4. Basically what it means is when it's rendering, it's going to go to either 4 subdivs or a noise threshold of 0.01. Whichever one of these two it gets to first, that's when it's going to stop. Now there might be some glossy and shiny stuff in the scene, so I'm going to change this to 24. I'm going to click on common, and let's do 480 by 270. GI, change this to irradiance map, make this very low. Light cache, just make that 500. You can even go lower on the light cache just for your tests. Elements are off. Image filter, I normally use area. Color mapping, let's change it to linear multiply. Color mapping only, no gamma. Yeah, that's what I like. Now I have an HDRI, so this can also bring color into the environment sometimes, so it's often good to turn that on and just make that black. So we're not getting this blue coming into the environment as well. Also, I'm just going to check in the environment tab here. Sometimes, I put things in here, but there's nothing in there, so that's fine. Okay, so we're just going to do a test. Let's test this view. Okay, I have a feeling that's actually rendered something else. Now the thing is, if I click on this render box, it's going to render the viewport, whichever was rendered last time. Like if I rendered this one, and then I've changed to this one, and now I've got my camera selected, or I click over here. If I click here, it's going to do the last viewport it was doing, so it's still going to render this one out. So this one here will render the new viewport. So let me just check. Yeah, that's more like I was expecting to see. Okay, so our sun here is too bright and the shadows are too sharp. Let's just check this one here again. Okay, so we're going to select this one. I'm not seeing any safe frames here. The safe frames show you what the camera actually sees as opposed to the viewport, so Shift F will turn those on. And I'll just get a little black box like this one has here. We just click render. Actually, it could also be if the camera's the clipping plane, I'm seeing more. Oh no, there you go, it's fine. Okay, so I must have been rendering a different viewport. Maybe I was rendering this one up here or something. Okay, so we're going to adjust the light settings. Okay, let's press M for the material editor. And let's check. We want to check this inverse gamma because, to make it brighter, you can do this. You can make this down low. You can go down about as far as 0.7, and that's going to increase the contrast. As I go up, the contrast will decrease. And we're just going to select this, and I'm going to change this render multiplier down to 0.1. The reason I wanted to decrease, I don't want to see as many sharp lines here. So let's just select this one again. Let's click render. I want the light to be softer in the room. One thing which you need to realize though is when you start affecting the inverse gamma, what starts happening is the colors become less saturated. If you go up, and if you go negative, the colors become more saturated. So sometimes then what you need to do is put it through a color correction and then desaturate some of the color and then plug that into the HDRI. Okay, gonna stop this. I think this is why I often go back to Peter Guthrie's HDRI, so I just get a nicer result. But we'll use this one here. I'm going to set this at 1.1 and this multiplier at 0.5. And I'm going to render this again. Again, we're too bright. Stop that. And we're going to come this down to, let's try 0.3. And then we'll let it render out this time to actually see it. Okay, 0.3. And render. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the light. I'll put it back to about 0. And this will then give me the... I'll just, instead of having the sunlight coming into the room, I'll just have ambient light from the HDRI coming in. So I'll be able to push up the value of the HDRI, but I don't have to worry about these shadows and bright light falling on everything. I should just get a lot of ambient light coming into the scene, and I think that's probably going to look nicer than this. So we'll try that in a second. Okay, horizontal rotation off. This might even need to go as much as 1. Let's see. Let's actually turn on history, save this out so we can start seeing what's happening here. Alright, that's closer to what I was thinking. Ambient lighting coming in from outside. Yeah, I think that's nicer. But, like I said, it is very green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this, change material map type, and I'm going to go General, Color Correction, keep old map as submap. Now what will happen is it will have changed the HDRI now, where that is, it will become this color correction. So if I turn this on, I click on saturation, let's do -15. I won't really ever go below -15. I'm just going to select this HDRI actually, and I'm going to push this up to 2. It's a little bit dull. And let's see what we have. Actually, let's save that. And render. Okay, so I made it brighter, but now it's blowing out the bed cover here. So I'm going to reduce that, plus it's blowing out the sheer. I'm going to reduce this. This light is too bright. Let's try 1.3. And I've still got a lot of green. Let's come down -25. Render that. So basically, you don't want blowout spots. You don't want to be turning on clamp output if possible. So it's kind of important to just do these little tests on the lights and let's see how they're coming and are they lighting your scene and what's happening. So here it's lit more than before. There's less color, less green coming into the room. And this will do, you know? This is alright. Because then we've got internal lights which will turn on to light the scene as well. Okay, so when it comes to actually setting up lights in the scene, now I've got my exterior lighting going and I'm fairly happy with that. My next action is just to put lights everywhere where they need to be. I don't necessarily do them all in one go, but in this case, there's not a lot of lights in this scene. So I'm going to change this from cameras to all. I'm just going to select these lights quickly. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I'm not going to do the candles now. We will put some lights where this fireplace is. I need that light and that light. Okay, Alt Q with isolate. Great. Now in the top view, I'm going to press Alt W so that goes full screen. And I'm just going to zoom in on this one and light again, V-Ray light. And I'm just going to make a little rectangle, change it from plane to sphere. And often with options, you know, is basically it's going to render out as a round ball. So I'm going to click invisible, and I don't want it affecting reflections because even if it's invisible and now it's just emitting light, you can also have it reflecting in things. So I'll normally turn off reflections as well. This is a little bit large. Let's try 25. It's about right. I'm going to call this chandelier light, and I'm just going to press shift and drag to instance these. Instance over here. Instance. And I'm just going to do this around this whole thing, and then I'm just going to drag them up and put them in place. Cancel. Control Z. There we go. Let's go front view. Select all of them, bring them up here. Okay, just going to press Alt and circle around and just get these kind of roughly in the right place. I'm going to change this to lights, so I'm just selecting the lights. And rather than making adjustments to these now, I'll do some tests and we'll adjust them as we're going. And I think that way it'll be easier for you to understand what I'm doing. Whereas if I just start changing things now, you'll be like, oh, why is he doing that? Okay, top view again. Now I could just drag and make another V-Ray light, but instead I'm just going to shift, drag this one over here, and I'm going to make a copy and call it standing light. Get that in the right place. Like that. A bit higher. There we go. And this is probably a little bit larger, so let's make that 30. Now, the weird thing with lights is as you increase the radius or the size, you know if it's plane, as you increase this size, you wind up with, you lower this amount. You know, if it's tiny and you want light coming off it, this has to be super high. Whereas if it's massive, you can set this down to, you know, 0.001 and have a lot of light coming off it. So it really does depend on the size of your light. But I'm going to leave it as a sphere, and radius I'm going to set to about 30. Okay. T, Z. Now we're going to just shift and drag this over to these lights. Copy again, and we're going to call this Bedside Lights. Top, Z. Shift, drag. This one I want to be an instance. Shift, drag over here. And make this a copy. Okay, this needs to be a little bit smaller, so change this multiply down to, change the radius here down to about 20. And top Z, drag this over here. That was a shift again, instance. Oh, cancel, I forgot to change the name of it. Fireplace, actually mantelpiece light. Mantelpiece light, shift drag, and create an instance. Okay, so I still have this one here to do. I'll do that later, and we'll do the fireplace in a minute as well. So I'm going to come out of isolation, go into the, actually press Alt W, and this is what I want. So Alt W again. Okay, now this is my V-Ray light lister. You can also get it here, Tools, V-Ray light lister. And this shows you all of the different lights which you have. So this V-Ray light, that's my HDRI, just call that HDRI. And I'm going to turn that off, and turn these off, and we'll just leave the chandelier light on for now, and let's do a test and see where we stand. Alright, so these aren't really that bright. I mean, here they look super bright, but if I do a region here, the reason this is this bright is because this two-sided material is set incorrectly. Like, this is an okay amount of light coming from here. Maybe I even would like a little bit more light coming out of these lights, you know? So we need to adjust this V-Ray two-sided material and maybe brighten the lights a bit, even though you would think at first, darken them. So if I bring up the material editor here, and I'm just going to select these lights. Oh, I've got to change this from lights to all or geometry. Okay, let's select these lights. Here they are. Let's see what we have. I made this scene over a year ago now, so I had a different workflow back then. It's my V-Ray two-sided material, and the translucency set there. That's okay. You know, if I look at this, I kind of want that in there. I'm going to take this color correction, shift drag that down and put that in the translucency. I can see a little bit of what I'm doing if I put the background on here. You know, if I take it off, you can just see it change slightly. If you take this and, you know, click the translucency and turn this way up, you can see quite a difference. So I'm going to click cancel. The point was, put this color correction in there, and I actually, yeah, this brightened the whole thing. So let's go back to 1, that's what it was at default. And let's bring it down to like 0.5. So let's just check this. Okay, I'm still not getting what I want. I can give it a second, but I'm pretty sure it's going to come out wrong. Yeah. Okay. So, M material editor again. I'll click here. I mean, it was a nice idea to get that map going in there, but it didn't work, so I could mess around with it further and get it to work. I'd probably have to take the bitmap into Photoshop and then bring down the whites on the bitmap, but it's not really worth it. Okay, I've just restarted my computer. It was lagging for some reason, I'm not sure why, so let's do another test render. Okay, it's still too bright. I'm just going to stop this here. Go back into the material editor. Oh yeah, we're going to take this out of there, double click on this. Let's make this darker, let's try that. And let's render. That's looking better. Okay, that might even be a bit too dark. So let's make this a little bit lighter. And at the same time, let's turn these lights up a little bit. Let's make this 50. And turn that off. Okay, I'm going to stop this. I want to put some color into these lights. So, temperature I want on. And let's turn this down to, let's try 5,000. Let's render. Okay. So I'm actually going to take this and reduce this just a touch. And this is a bit too much color for me, so let me put 50. Let's do 55. Okay. Alright, now that gives me a good idea of the lights in the scene and where I'm heading with them. We're going to turn that off. Let's do the bedside light next. So that's this one and this one here. Okay, just way too bright. Let's try 15. And again, let's get some light going on. Let's get some color. Obviously, if I select the light, you know, if I'm here and I select the light here, because this will select the light for me, I could change the color, but I always prefer to change the temperature, because you can change this color to anything, you know. If I leave it on color and I change this, you know, you can make it purple, which is fine if that's what you want. But if you make it temperature, you know, then I just find this is closer to what I want. I don't like making my lights the same either. There we go, we'll try that. That's looking nice, but again, I think I've got the same problem here with the V-Ray two-sided material which I put on there, so I'm just going to pick that and change that. Yeah, let's take that off there. And let's darken this a bit. Okay, let's check that again. I do sometimes leave in the texture in that slot, in the translucency slot on the V-Ray two-sided material. But in this case, I'm trying to do this relatively fast and show you my workflow. So it's come out pretty nice. Okay, great. So we'll move on to the next light. Again, super, super, super white. Again, the V-Ray two-sided material is wrong. I kind of like this as white because, you know, you could put candle flames on here and they're going to have a yellow glow, and you've got this yellow glow down here from the fire. So I do kind of like this white. Maybe not that white. Just reduce this a bit down to 20. And turn this on. And 6,000 I think we'll put it at. And let's check the material. Just click this. Let's make it a little bit darker. Okay. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good. You know, we could darken it a touch more. Here, just take it down to about that. That should be fine. Alright, so we've got one more light over here. I think about 15. And let's try 5500 on this. Okay. I like that. It's bringing some light in. I think that actually needs to be pumped up a bit to see it better. So let's try it again back at 30. And we can just do a little region of this space here. Let's see. It's also nice because you can see it in the reflection over there. Yeah, I like that. Okay, we turn that off. So we still have the fireplace to do. And we have this lamp here. And then we're going to try everything together. So for the fireplace, let's just isolate this. Okay, top. So I press G to get rid of the grid. And press Shift F, get rid of these safe frames. Press F3 so I can see through it. Okay. So really with this, what I'll be doing is take a V-Ray light and I'll put it here. And again, I'll do the same as before. I'll make it a sphere. But I'll do something you don't normally do, which is scale them. So I'll scale it like this, and scale it a bit like that, pull it up, and possibly make it a bit smaller. It still thinks it's, you know, got this radius, so let's drop that down to 40. And multiplier, set that to about 5. And this one, color's perfect, because, you know, I want some kind of dark red going on in there. And then press W, and then shift and drag, and I'll put it here. Make that cancel. I just got to name this thing. Fire red. Okay, shift and drag. Instance. Let's move this further back. Now, I'll have to double check these with the plate of the fireplace, because that's missing. And then I'll go top view, I'll create another light, V-Ray light, and we'll call this, we'll make this a sphere, and we'll call this fire yellow, and we'll choose a color again. And radius 20, and multiplier 5 again. And let's get this roughly in the right place. And something like this. Alright. Now let's just select these. Turn that off. I need to select this guy. Alt Q. Actually, let's let this stuff in the bottom. Oops. This green stuff. There we go. All cue. Okay, F3. Top view. Hey, that's alright, you know? Let's take one of these a bit higher. Alright, so these are just going to create a glow in a fireplace. And they're going to simulate the flames. Okay. Alt W. Yeah. For some reason, when I restarted, facets now doesn't show the model. It's ridiculous. Alright, let's go back into the camera. Camera 1, F3. Let's see what we're doing. And let's just make sure I've only got those fire lights on. Turn off that standing light. Okay. Let's render. Now, I forgot to do two things on these lights. First of all, if I select the fire red is selected, options, I forgot to make them invisible and not affect reflections. And we'll do the same with yellow, invisible, not affect reflections. And then on the red ones, you know, this multiplies too much. So let's just drop that down to 2. And let's try this again. Right, I think that's kind of nice. We could even pump that up a bit more probably. Let's get that up to 3. And you just get a little bit of red glow from the fireplace in the room, which is nice. Alright, now we've got one more light to do. And that's this guy. So, this material I edited last time I was in this scene. It's from an Arch interior model. I believe this is material ID 2. So I made it as fast SSS. So light is going to come through this. And I've made it green. I wanted it to be a green kind of glass, you see, and I edited it, I put in this map. You know, I want it to be, well, you have to Google table lamps. I'm not going to do it now, but you'll see in the old days, you know, a lot of these had this green color. I forget what color this was, but it definitely wasn't green when I started with it. Okay. Alt W should be making this full screen, but it isn't, so I'll just work in this little screen. Max is playing up for some reason. Okay, so we're just going to make a little V-Ray light, and I'm going to make a tube. Cylinder. Sorry, cylinder, not a tube. Okay, let's rotate this guy, and there we go, local. And press A, turn on angle snaps, 90 degrees. This is going to be my light bulb. Let's adjust the height slightly. And the radius, bring that down. Okay. Now, when I assign this, like, I don't think there's going to be any problem. Sometimes there really is a problem. Now Alt W is working. You know, you assign this to the mesh, and the mesh moves. So the way you handle that is you come in here and you effect pivot only, center to object, reset the X form, reset the transform. It'll come up with a little thing, reset selected. You do that, and then what I do is I normally do it twice, because I find that once, sometimes it's still off a bit. But now we've got this, we're going to say table lamp. And let's change this temperature. Let's change this 4800. And from here, turn it to mesh. And then mesh light, pick mesh. I'm going to pick this one. Okay. And that mesh now is a light. Top view, F3, so I can see through this thing. And just line it up a bit better. Control Z. Line it up a bit better there. Alright, so we'll see how that renders out and see what changes we're going to make. Probably that will go down to about 5, I think. Well, 5 or 6. Alright, let's come out of isolation mode by clicking this. And F9. And you can see there, you can see the green and the light coming through the green and the light lighting up all under here. So I like that. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Let me just make sure I'm happy. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going to I'm going to decrease the multiplier. I'm going to put it down to 4. The only reason is I like this. I just don't know how much I like it. I think I probably preferred it at 6. Alright. We'll turn off this region. And we're going to turn on all the lights now. And do a test. Now sometimes at this stage, you know, your HDRI, you tested that originally, and now it starts blowing things out because you've got that plus the other lights in the scene. So we'll do this test, we'll see how it comes out, and we'll see what we need to adjust. Okay, a couple of things I can see immediately. These are coming out pink. These are too bright. You know, they're blowing out the light here. But apart from that, I quite like it. So let's make some adjustments quickly. And this light here, you can hardly see him. He probably can go up a bit. Let's try 10. Bedside light. Let's make this 6,000. And chandelier light, I'm going to drop this down to 25. Alright, I like this. Still some minor adjustments here. I'm going to take this, let's bring the material editor up. And let's just pick that again. And this one here, isn't it? Lay that out. This is a VMPP item. I'm going to make this easy. I'm going to take color correction map and put it in here. Click on here, saturation, -40. And let's just render that. I actually want that color back in there. Bedside light, I want to drop that down to 12, like it's burning out here, right? So actually let's try 10. And yeah, I want this color back in, so 5500. Okay, let's render that. There we go, that's better. And if I had more time, I would adjust this more. You know, I'm not so happy with this material, but for the purpose of lighting the scene, that's fine. Right, and then this here, again, is a bit blown out, so let's adjust that slightly. I don't know where to put it. Here it is. a bit suspicious that this material is not quite what it pretends to be. If I make this black, I bet it's still going to show. Yeah, see? It's still there. So this material here, which I'm changing, is the wrong one. Wait, undo those last two parameter changes. Let's isolate this. This is weird because it says it is that material. Oh, unless this. What's this? Yeah, this has got refraction on. Okay. I'm going to turn this right down. Okay. And what was that set at? Fairly low. Go a bit lower. Make sure that region's still on. Okay, let's try it. On certain things, like if you look at the shears here, there's refraction on there and a two-sided material. So obviously at the time I did it on this as well. But it's not regular for me to have both on. So, well, for shears it is. For shears I will often put it on. But in day-to-day practice, I often don't have it on there. There we go. I think that's pretty nice. And this is the last thing here. Again, I'm not really happy with the two-sided material on this, which is this. It's a bit dark. Let's brighten him up a bit. See if we can get some light coming through. Just not loads, you know. Alright, I'm going to go back to what we had before. Or maybe it's 53. Stop this. It's coming down a bit more. It's 33. It's probably about where it was there, here. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there. The only other trick I would say with these lights is sometimes they can get just bright and burn spots where the light is. So again, if I press F3 here and select one of these, actually let's select the whole thing. Let's go top view. Let's just select this. Let's deselect what we don't want. Alright, now we just have the chandelier. So the point is with these lights, if I change this to lights and select all of them, you can scale here individually. And you know, lights normally aren't round, and they're going to be more this kind of shape in here. The only trick now is you need to really rotate them according to the chandelier here. So just, I'd say top view maybe. Yeah, just rotate these a little. You know, if you don't rotate them, then you could easily see through the material and see the lights in the kind of roughly wrong place. You don't have to get these perfect, I don't think. You just need it looking right, you know. In the real world, they're often slightly off. I'm going to press A because its angle snaps is on at 5 degrees, and I don't necessarily want to go that much. Okay, nice. So that's the kind of thing I would do there. And then you can expect more of an even lighting across the light shade. Alright, I think that's fine. If anything, this might be still a bit blown out inside. So let's lower these a bit more. Actually, you know, there's another way I'm going to trick it and handle this. If I bring up the material editor. The thing is, this material is really very, very light. So it doesn't matter what I do with this, I'd have to bring this light right down to make it so it doesn't blow out. And I don't really want to do that. I like the light coming out of it, I just don't like the blowout. So what I'm going to do to handle it is I'm going to right click on this, change material map type. I'm going to choose a V-Ray two-sided material. Sorry, a V-Ray override material. Keep old material as submaterial. And then what I'm going to do is right now for the GI coming off the material, it's using this very light material, so there's a lot of light coming off. So I've got this normal standard V-Ray material here, plug that into the GI, and now this would change the GI coming off here. Alright, now you can instantly see less color in this. So I am going to make this darker. Actually, what I'm going to do, because gray is what I'm getting off there now. So I'm just going to pick this color here. And that's darker, but it's also closer to this color, so hopefully we'll be a bit further towards our goal. I was actually originally just going to pick straight out of the render and grab this color. Alright, I'm going to try something else here. See how far we need to go. I'm just going to push it to an extreme. I'm going to take this and make this black. Let's see what we get. Okay, so now this has gone black. It's still blowing out on the inside. So we really do need to lower the value here of this light. So let's try 15. Okay, still blowing out. Let's try 5. That's not bright enough. Let's try 10. Okay, so that was 10. I'm going to lower this a little bit more. Let's try 8. Yeah, I think that's good. You can see some color coming through there. Now what I'm going to do is remove this V-Ray override material. Just plug this straight in there because I don't think I need that. Okay, one last thing I'll do just to get some light coming back into the scene. I'll isolate this. I'm going to bring a new V-Ray light into the scene and put it here. Okay, I'm going to change this to disk. And then I'm just going to put this, let me just go front. I'm just going to bring this up here. Rotate this, press A, bring the angle snaps back on. 180. And I'm going to adjust this amount, but I'm guessing about 1 and temperature and make this about 5,000. And I'm going to do this, make a copy and put this underneath. And yeah. And just test this. Okay, I forgot to set these. Let me just select these lights. Invisible, effect reflections. And this one, invisible and effect reflections, and let's test. So now these new lights are just blowing out a bit. Let's make these 0.3. This doesn't automatically update, so just refresh if you want, if you like. Let's try that again. And there we go. I think that's good to go. So I'm going to render this out higher resolution, and that's how I light the interior of a scene.